Today we hear from three photographers who have done amazing work as photojournalists: Vincent Laforet, Deanne Fitzmaurice, and Ed Kashi, as they share with us how they capture their stunning images.
Which one was the one you won the Pulitzer for? That was 9/11.
Photojournalism, and you go to Pakistan. I was part of a group of photographers that covered basically, for example, the first image there, Jared, that's not a portrait. That's me on stage with, I think about 10,000 people in the audience, with a mullah screaming, kill Bush, kill Americans. And here we are with his security detail, sitting while he's at the podium, and I made this portrait. That's a very real emotion. I don't think this guy was channeling much warmth towards me.
No.
I was very glad that I was very visible to a lot of people at that moment, because I felt that if I had met this guy, somewhere else in a more remote location, my fate may not have found the same outcome, So, this is during war, right, or the start of a war. So very, very different. Or the next image is of a young girl who left Afghanistan. This is her new home, which is literally a wall made of mud in the middle of a dirt, acre or 10 acres of dirt, basically. A very interesting moment where when we pulled up, we were the typical Western photographers with cameras, and all the kids were jumping around me. Let's scene out of a movie. And then suddenly, after a minute or two, I locked eyes with her, and this is what happened. Everything stopped. And, this is where photojournalism and photography has a very, I think, unique power, in that when you look at this image, or when I look at this image, I ask myself, what's her story? What is she feeling? How did she end up here? And I didn't write anything about it. We don't know, but it engages the viewer, hopefully, into asking those questions.
One of the things, when we talked back 9 years ago, you talked about don't use your camera right away. Go out and look around the scene, talk to the people. Can you kind of refresh people on that, on your approach? Because we were just actually talking about that recently.
Sure. I think the secret to me that I try to teach or share with other photographers that ask me about my process is, what I tell them is, it's less about the pictures you take and more about the pictures you don't take. And what I mean by that is, when you show up on a scene, whether it's a news story or whether it's a landscape that's not really moving anywhere anytime soon other than the sun setting, sometimes you have to, if you're caught by something, you have to react and just start shooting what you see immediately in front of you. But I find that my best work, unless there's something really extraordinary that got me there in the first place, which I'm trying to say, you don't ignore that. So if you're driving in a car or riding on a bike or walking and something catches your eye, go ahead and capture that, because that's probably the reason you stopped. But don't dismiss it entirely. But once you've captured that, try to move on. And, as a photographer, I almost go through a set pattern of things to think about and look about. And what I do is I move around and I think about what the image is. Sometimes I give myself time. And the original thought I was trying to share is, try to avoid getting so locked into taking pictures that you're no longer looking around. It's too easy to get in tunnel vision. And more importantly, it's too easy to obsess on what I would call mediocre or predictable photos versus really taking the time to look around and absorb what really makes it unique. And to me, it's almost an intellectual discussion within myself as much as a process, because I'm constantly asking myself, what makes this situation unique? What is special here that I need to capture? And then once I found that, I'll go through my process of trying to capture it as best I can.
So, Deanne, which photograph won the Pulitzer Prize?
It was actually that photograph of the little boy that we saw earlier, the Iraqi boy. Now, that was it was a series of 20 images that won the Pulitzer. And it was following Salah from 2003 all the way through to the end of 2004. And I was, photographing him in the hospital. It was a matter of building trust with Salah and his dad, so that I could go in and photograph him and capture these difficult moments in the hospital while he had dozens of surgeries. And then as he left the hospital and he and his dad got an apartment in Oakland, they couldn't go back to Iraq because insurgents feared that they were American spies. So they settled in California, and I continued photographing his journey. He and his dad, and then they were granted asylum, and they were granted asylum for the mom and the rest of the family to come over from Iraq at the end of 2004. And so the writer and I, we traveled to Iraq, to the border of Iraq, and photographed the family coming back to America. So it was a series of those 20 images that won the Pulitzer. It won in 2005. I do have the entire series on my website if anyone wants to see that. And my website is just my name, DeanneFitzmaurice.com.
There it is.
The Pulitzer can be a single image, or it can be up to 20 images. And as I said, this was awarded for a photo essay of these 20 images. It can be awarded, there are two categories in the Pulitzers. There is the news feature photography, and there's the News Photography Award, and there's the Feature Photography Award. And it was the Feature Photography Award that this won. Sometimes the Pulitzer can be won by a single individual, which this was the case with my Pulitzer, and sometimes it's awarded to a staff, like the staff of Reuters or the photography staff of Associated Press or the New York Times.
So tell us about this one.
Okay, so this is from my first project with National Geographic, a story that I proposed to them back in 1991, looking at the Kurds. So this image was, this is a really interesting, the background to this was a few days before this image was made. I'll never forget this. I was in some phone booth in Van, Turkey, V-A-N, Van, Turkey, which is way out in a sort of northeastern part of Turkey. And I was on the phone with my photo editor, and she was basically reaming me out. So remember, I'm like, 32 years old. This is my first assignment for National Geographic. A massive assignment for one of the hardest things, certainly the hardest thing I'd ever done at that point in my life. And she's basically, I can't even remember, but all I know is I was standing in that phone booth watching my life end, and thinking that she was basically going to pull the plug on the story. And so out of that conversation came the decision to redirect. This is the value of working with great editors, to redirect my energy. And instead, I can't remember who came up with it, but it was like, okay, I'll go back to Diyarbakir, the main city, and I'm going to follow a human rights lawyer. Because of that, I got into this courtroom, and then this image was made. And when it was published, the Turkish government in 1992, when the story came out, it was a cover story, they confiscated all the issues of that magazine, and they changed the rules of access to those courts.
Wow.
For background, that image was a very controversial image then. Now they don't have those courts. They would never allow a photographer in them anyway.
Right. And again, we have frames within frames, and obviously amazing composition. What more can we say? That's a beautiful image.
Also, I'll never forget, because I think I had like a flash fill on it.
I was going to ask you if there was a fill.
Yeah, I maybe shot literally 10 frames, and then the judge pointed at me and was like, "Sit down." And
there you are, Ed.
But then I realized, whoa, okay. So as I sat down without them seeing me, I took the roll of film out of the camera. I stuck it in my sock, and I reloaded my camera because I thought, oh my gosh, are they gonna potentially
pull it, right?
Confiscate? Yeah. So anyway.
Okay, so this was film. What camera were you using? Do you remember?
Oh, I've always shot with Canon. That was not with a Leica.
Yeah.
It was probably, gosh knows, what was I shooting with then? What were the Canons back then?
I can't even remember.
F1 or like an EOS AE2 or one of those wonderful Canon camera bodies. And then that was probably a 35 or 28 fixed
And the
lens.
film was...
So back when I was in shooting color slide film, it was either a Fuji film, like at 100 ASA, like Fuji Chrome, or sometimes Velvia, or Kodachrome 200, which I would push. Isn't that interesting, folks? Think about this. Back then, you pushed your film to 360 ISO,
Whoa!
And it was like, whoa!
Yeah, that's really
now
pushing.
I have a Canon camera that I can put to like 36,000 ISO, and it's
crazy.
still a usable image.
It's amazing.
We hope that you enjoyed that video. If you did, please give it a like and leave a comment. We love to hear from you. If you want to see more videos like this, be sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell so that you can know when all of our future videos come out. And finally, be sure to get out there and capture your own images of life.